So now we'll be looking at rates, which are different from ratios, because in the previous section, we looked at ratios, but I mentioned before, you have to remember that ratios compare quantities that use the same units of measure. So we were comparing years to years, meters to meters. So units are ways to measure things, either time or distance or weight or different things. Now, when we talk about rates, there are two units, two different units, and we're comparing the units we're not comparing within two different items of the same units. These are two different units, and we refer to them as rates or rates of change. Okay, so you've encountered rates before. If you've ever driven, you'll see a speed limit sign that says 100 kilometers per hour. So you have kilometers is one unit, and hours is another. One measures distance, one measures time. So that's the difference with a rate. And what we typically try and do with rates is get it the first unit per one of the second unit, and we'll talk about that in a second. So if you look at the wording of it, it says 100 kilometers per hour. So this line right here is kind of like the word per, okay? So you have 100 kilometers per hour. Okay. Another way sometimes people write them like this is you could write 100 kilometers and then your slash goes like that per hour, or sometimes they just put H. Okay. Again, a parasite spreading through the Nova Scotia woodlands at a rate of 15 hectares per year. So 1,500 hectares per is this line. So 1,500 hectares per year. $18 per hour, so $18 per hour. Fuel consumption of the vehicles is 7 liters per. So this is different. This is a different rate where it's not, you don't have just one of the bottom unit, okay? And that happens sometimes, like you do see that in fuel consumption especially, okay? But generally, what we try and do is get the second unit down to 1, okay? And we'll show you how to do that. So again, dollars per kilogram, dollars, and then this line means per, okay? So like ratios, rates are usually expressed in their simplest form, like what we talked about, but you could get something that says 7 meters per 4 seconds, right? So that line right there represents the word per, okay? But that's not in simplest form. That doesn't, like if you were saying this is 7 meters per 4 seconds, that doesn't make as much sense to someone as saying this is how far they go per second. Like if I said I was driving on the highway and I was going 200 kilometers per 2 hours, people would kind of look at you funny. But that's the same as saying 100 kilometers per hour. You just need to get it in simplest form. So what you generally do is whatever the bottom unit is, you divide both of those by the bottom unit. So if we divide, so we had 7 meters per 4 seconds, and if we divide by 4, because 4 is the bottom unit, and we divide 7 by 4, so you have to divide both by. 7 divided by 4 gives you 1.75. You can use a calculator for that, per 1. And if you remember, meters were on top, seconds were on the bottom, so 1.75 meters per 1 second, or 1.75 meters per second. Okay, so that's all you have to do is to get it in simplest form is take the bottom unit and divide by whatever the bottom unit is. That will automatically change the bottom unit to 1, and then it'll tell you how many of the top unit there are in one of those bottom units. So if we look at this example, it's asking us to identify whether or not this is a ratio or a rate. Okay, so if it's a ratio, express it in its simplest form, and if it's a rate, express it as a unit rate. So that a unit rate basically just means getting the bottom unit to be 1. Okay, so if we look at the first example, we have $25 to 4 hours. Well, we have dollars and hours, so that is going to be a rate, because there's 2 units, dollars and hours. Okay. Now, if we want to get it as a unit rate, we have $25 over 4 hours. Now we need to divide both of these by whatever the bottom is to get it in the unit for 1 unit of hours. So 4 hours, so we're going to divide by 4. We're also going to divide the 25 by 4. And if we do that, 25 divided by 4 is 625. And 4 divided by 4 is 1 hour. So that's $6.25 per hour. Okay? Now, if we go to the next one, we have to again look at the units to determine if it's a rate or a ratio. So we have kilometers and hours. So that is going to be a rate because we have 2 units. Okay. Now, in terms of the unit rate, we had 210 kilometers and 2 hours. So to get it in a unit rate, we divide by the unit on the bottom. So we're going to divide both of these by 2 because 2 is on the bottom. So we divide by 2, divide by 2, and that 210 divided by 2 gives us 105 kilometers, and 2 hours divided by 2 gives us 1, which is 105 kilometers per hour. Okay? Now if we look at the third example, we have hours to hours. So this is actually a ratio. Okay? Because that could be like Mike's hours compared to Jane's hours, right? It could be Mike's hours to Jane's hours, but they're both being measured. They're both measuring time in hours, okay? So to get it in its, it says if it's a ratio, express it in its simplest form, then we're going to say, okay, we're going to remember writing ratios in fractional form, 12 hours to, that line means 2, 3 hours, and then I know that 3 goes into both those numbers, so I'm going to divide both of those by 3. Okay, and 12 divided by 3 is 4, and 3 divided by 3 is 1. Okay, so that's 4 hours to 1 hour. You could say Mike works 4 hours for every 1 hour that Jane works. Okay, if you have any questions about this, see your instructor.